What's happening, what's happening, what's happening? Of course, you know it's your boy B-Hop Radio Shouty, and stepping in the building, we got some special guests off in this thing. Dave Mays, founder of The Source. Larry Hoover Jr. in this thing. You already know what time it is. Fellas, what's good with it, man?
What's going on? Good to be here.
Man, feeling good, feeling great. Now, I mean, Dave, first of all, I'm going to be all over the place with you. Same thing with you too, Larry, because I got questions for everybody in here, and I got questions for Days. Yeah. Now, Dave, I want to talk about Breakbeat first.
Okay.
That's the new. That's what's going on right now. What is it like coming back in this thing on the digital side with the audio and the podcast and the content creation?
Yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting. I mean, I think there's just an incredible opportunity in the space. You know, digital media as a whole is kind of like wide open, you know, in the sense that the playing field is level. You know, these big companies that ran these radio stations, these television networks, and, you know, these magazines, these newspapers, you know, they don't have those kind of advantages anymore. They're out here fighting just like me and you are, you know,
Thanks.
Every day trying to figure it out and find the right way. So, you know, that to me is opportunity, number one. And number two, I mean, podcasting is just, it's such a dynamic, you know, space right now. I see it, you know, being around for a long time. It's been around for a while, but
That's
obviously
right.
It's starting to go through an explosive growth phase now. But it's still wide open. You know, still so much room to grow, and it's a space where, you know, new voices can be discovered, new ideas, new perspectives on things that, you know, you're not getting in all the other kind of mainstream corporate controlled, you know, media, you know, platforms that's out there. So, you know, for me, it was all about having a vision that there's a need for a network to represent the interests of the hip hop community, okay, and to speak, you know, in from their point of view on things. Hip hop now spans across 3 generations, right? So, you know, from Generation X, Millennials, Gen Z, there's, you know, millions and millions of us who've grown up from a young age being influenced by hip hop. And, you know, hip hop goes much deeper than the music. You know, it's a culture. It shapes your way of thinking, your way of looking at the world, to the point where, you know, all of us, I think, have certain ways of thinking and looking at things that's going on out here in the world that we kind of share, but we don't see reflected in other media platforms. A comprehensive, you know, approach to any type of subject matter that's important in our lives and in the world. So I think the music we've seen kind of create a divide between the older and the younger sides of the generation. So you hear that, oh, you know, this mumble rap ain't real hip hop, or, you know, that you guys are just old and out of touch. And, you know, while we might not like the same music at different ages on that spectrum there, beneath the surface of that music, the way we're thinking about things, when we watch a sports program, when we watch the news, how we feel, I think we all share a lot more in common. And that's the void that I'm trying to fill, similar to what The Source represented for many years while I was running it, you know, as the magazine of hip hop, music, culture, and politics. You know, you flip through The Source magazine, the unsigned hype, the mic ratings, the interview with, you know, Tupac, whatever the case may be, but people were also getting a lot of knowledge and information about many other, you know, things, whether it was health, whether it was fashion, whether it was business, things of that nature. And I think that's, again, kind of what's missing. Hip hop is bigger than it's ever been before. You know, it's everywhere, but we don't have a strong branded platform that really represents us comprehensively. And so that's what I'm trying to do with Breakbeat, and bridge the gap so that we can be more powerful together, because we have so much more in common than is being acknowledged. And as a unit across those generations, we can have an even greater impact on the world than hip hop has already had.
Dave, starting that Source from a newsletter, getting that thing to being one of the biggest, craziest magazines in the game, conceptualization of it to making it come into fruition. How the hell did you pull that off? A newsletter to the most powerful magazine in the game?
I mean, I was always, you know, very entrepreneurial growing up. I always had, you know, ideas to try to create different businesses. I had a a lawn mowing business in junior high. I had business cards and 80, clients. And so I was always very enterprising. I fell in love, with hip hop and the culture at a young age, growing up in Washington, D.C., just getting exposed to the music and the culture of the city. Fell in love with go-go music in D.C., really, and then hip hop. It was just, led me on the path. I ended up at Harvard for undergrad. The Source was started out of my dorm room while I was in college. 19 years old. It was a newsletter, single sheet of paper. I was hosting a radio show actually on the Harvard station, because when I got to Harvard, it's like I didn't really fit in there on the campus, and it was a kind of a culture shock for me. The radio station I joined, and they gave me a little radio show late night on the weekends to play hip hop and go-go. Go-go didn't last that long. People hated it up there, But that gave me an outlet into the city, Boston and all the areas around Harvard. There was a huge hip hop fan base up there, and so the radio show kind of became my way to tap into the community and get more into that. And the Source started as a newsletter for listeners to the radio show. People always would call in and want to know information. When is the new Big Daddy Kane single coming out? Who produced that new EPMD remix or whatever the case might be? We didn't have access to information. This is in 86, 87, 88 is when I actually started the Source. There's no way to get information about hip hop. There's no magazine, no newspaper, no television, radio's not talking about it. There's nowhere to get info. So that was the original idea. I was plugged into different record labels, around the country that were doing hip hop, all the independent labels, so they would mail me their music early. I got to get that new, Stetsasonic advanced copy before anyone else so I could break that song, and I would get information, and that was how it started. And then the vision just grew just because I just felt like hip hop has so much power to change our world. It cuts across so many lines that usually divide us. It's one of the, if not the most unifying kind of force that we have in the world, as far as being able to connect the dots across, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're black, white, Chinese, whether you live in Brooklyn or whether you live in, South Africa. Hip hop has that ability to cross all these boundaries and bring us together. So I felt it would be bigger, than rock and roll or any other form of music. And I wanted to build, a voice. Originally, it was like I'm trying to build the Rolling Stone of the hip hop generation. Rolling Stone was a magazine that started very small and became huge and that kind of thing. My ideas just kept growing. The vision just kept growing as I got more and more from the newsletter to a little small magazine to actual magazine, and then to brand and starting to do all the things that I did with the Source brand.
What was the first artist that you got on that Source cover that you felt like took the brand over the top?
Oh man, well, we had so many great covers, but one of the covers that I think was really pivotal in our growth, and is probably one of my favorite covers of all time, was the cover of Dr. Dre when he had the gun to his head. Okay, now this came out a couple months right before the Chronic dropped. So, if you remember, they had dropped, what was the song with Snoop on the movie soundtrack? Deep Cover. Deep Cover. They had dropped Deep Cover, and people, knew that Dre had left, NWA. There was all these rumors about what was going on, and I'm like, I got to track him down, and I got to get involved and figure out what it is, and get to it early. I got like an advanced copy of the Chronic, and I was like, man, this is incredible. And I flew out to L.A., ended up getting with Suge Knight, convinced him to give us the exclusive cover and the photo shoot and everything. We did all that, and it came out, like I said, maybe a month or two before the Chronic dropped. So we were like helped really push that out to the world. And as you know, that's probably arguably the most influential hip hop album of all time.
Exactly.
Is the Chronic. So that was a really important, point for the Source.
When it came to the unsigned hype and breaking artists, did you feel like these artists that you all were breaking were going to grow up to be Biggie Smalls, DMX, and some of the greatest of all doggone time?
I mean, I wasn't personally the one reviewing the unsigned hype tapes. My man Matty C, and there's a bunch of others, Riggs Morales, and John Schechter, who started, and a lot of people that worked on that column over the years were telling the story of that in a podcast documentary series.
Oh, that's hard.
We're working on.
Yeah,
right now.
that's hard. Oh,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
It's gonna be crazy because there's so many, like the ones you mentioned. There's Common, Mobb Deep, Eminem, Jay Electronica, Capone and Noriega, David Banner. All these people are part of unsigned hype in that column. So I think what drove us at the Source was we loved hip hop. It was just, that's what we lived, we loved. We were all young. In those days, the whole staff was 25 and under. And it was just that passion for what we were doing and really believing that we and hip hop were making a difference, and we're fighting against the rest of the world because hip hop was looked down upon by everybody. They didn't think it was going to last. Whatever, they didn't like it. They thought it was negative. All the different things that we were dealing with in those days. But so I think just that, we just wanted to do the best in every area, and we got a lot of demo tapes. People started mailing us in demo tapes, and we finally said, look, let's start a column. We'll review a unsigned artist demo tape every month. And like you said, DMX, Biggie. I mean, I personally got Biggie his first, his record deal with Puff.
That's crazy.
Puff called me when they gave him his deal for Bad Boy up at Uptown. He was starting his own imprint, and he said, hey, I'm looking for artists. Who do you got? I went down the hallway to my man Matty C. He was like, well, we just put Biggie, in the last month. He's incredible. Matty loved Biggie. And I was like, well, bring that demo up to Puff, and he signed him like a month later.
Talk to me about the influence that you have and have had over the years running the Source at that time too. When it came to breaking new artists or helping to network and, shape the culture, what was your place in there, Dave?
Oh man, I mean, integral. I mean, I was in the middle of everything and everybody. The Source was the Bible of hip hop. Again, like you said, this is before internet, social media, anything. So the Source is everything. It's for everybody, and people just rely on it, on a monthly basis. But the Source was kind of like the United Nations of hip hop. I was the only person in the industry that dealt with everybody. Because, this label or artist might deal with this one, but they're not in the middle of dealing with everybody like I was. So I built up, incredible relationships. That was always part of, what made me successful in business, was being able to build those kind of strong relationships across the board. So, whether it was the Jay Princes, whether it was, Suge Knight, whether it was Puff, whether it was, Master P, Leor Cohen, all these different people that were really influential in the early stages of hip hop. I had great relationships with those people, and were able to get people excited about what the Source was doing. As far as it being an outlet that could really help enhance the music and the culture. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people would say, about the Source that know, and hopefully more people will learn. But, hip hop, where it is today, has a lot to do with the role that myself and the Source played, and how we helped kind of not only elevate the culture, but keep it authentic at the same time. That's really, sometimes is the difficult part of hip hop, that authenticity, the realness, the stuff, that comes with, the place that hip hop comes from. Hip hop comes from our, inner city disadvantaged communities, and the conditions, that those communities have to deal with and have had to deal with, and all the hardships and the struggles and the pain and all that is what has given birth to hip hop. So, always just keeping that in perspective. I think that balance is hard, because the corporate world sometimes, they don't want to deal with the realities of, what's going on with people in these communities. Yeah. And but I always was able to kind of walk that line of trying to keep that ties to the hood and to the street and the authenticity, but also deal with the corporate side and play like a role and kind of bridging those. Yeah.
When we speak of the community, we got to get you in here, Larry.
Yeah, please.
We got Larry Hoover Jr. in here. I mean, what's been going on, boss?
Man, just fighting.
Talk to me.
Just trying to take advantage of the opportunity that's been presented to me to, fight for my father. He's been represented wrongly. You know, he's looked at as a street icon and never really looked at as a human being. So now that I had this opportunity to fight for him, it started with, you know what, it didn't just start. We've been going through this, but, you know, my platform got bigger through the Kanye West thing, and me and Dave was already working on some things before that happened. So I'm just in the fight to, my father's still fighting for his life. People are busy running around talking about gangster disciples and what have you, and there's been stuff done on my father before, and they create their own narrative of what's going on, and it's all negative, and it's not the truth of who he is and what he has done over time. So since I had the opportunity, I'm trying to create my own narrative. Dave is helping me do that, as Kanye and other people helping me do it, and I'm just trying to keep fighting, you know.
Talk to me about linking up with Kanye and working to free the father.
Well, you know, Kanye is from Chicago.
Yes,
and
sir.
He grew up around a lot of the guys from Chicago, and a lot of guys that he was around happen to be proud supporters of my father. So
that's right.
That's kind of what brought us together, and he just gave me the opportunity to put the word out there. But even before he did that, he went to the White House and talked to Trump about trying to free my father.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't hear exactly what was said, but he said some things.
Yeah.
And I can't do nothing but love him for that.
What went through your mind when Kanye went up there to Trump trying to free Larry Hoover?
I was just proud that he did it because I knew he was going.
Ooh.
You know.
Yeah.
Everybody else didn't know, and they like, what is this? What happened? We had planned on it already. We talked about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. It might not have went exactly how we planned on it going, but he did. He said he was going to do it, and he did it.
Working with Dave Mays, what kind of platform is he helping you out with to help grow the movement and reach a broader audience?
Well, I mentioned how this go, or do you need to mention that?
I mean, go right ahead.
You know, he has his the Breakbeat coming in.
That's right.
He's gonna do one of the shows on the life of my father.
That's hard.
So, he's gonna create the narrative and show who he is and what he's really been doing, what he's about, the type of people he's affected, and just show what kind of person he actually is, and also keep pushing about the fight and the injustices that's going on dealing with him in this situation. It's other people that's going through the same thing, that's on the same case with him. Damn. And a lot of guys are coming home. Same case, same paperwork.
Yeah.
And the same charges. And there's guys that have been freed.
Yeah.
And we still waiting for him to be free.
What has it been like for you having your father being locked up for so damn long, man?
I mean, it's and it's a terrible feeling when you go to visit and you leave and you know that he's gonna stay there.
Yeah.
To just know that my father is around. Some people don't know where their father are, or they just don't deal with him. Mm-hmm. But I deal with my father. We have a relationship the best that we can for the situation at hand. And we do have a good relationship. I don't want that to sound the wrong way, but we have the best that we can for the situation that he's in. And
that's right.
To know that, he's stuck in a cage. Like, I just passed the aquarium. The zoo is not far away. They keep animals in aquariums and in the zoo.
Yeah.
My father's not an animal, but they fail to realize or give him the credit of changing or rehabilitating himself. No redemption, and it is redemption there. Plus, they don't look at what he was doing before, they brought the case that sent him to the ADX in Florence, Colorado. Mm. He was helping the community. He was making changes. He was making peace, bringing different organizations together, bringing people together to march when we had problems in the community, when they were shutting down medical centers, when they were trying to close schools. They caught serial rapists in the community. Mm-hmm. These guys that they call the GDs caught the serial rapists in the community, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they don't care about none of these type of things. There's guys that would be in the street that was going to school because they had to go to school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to change the narrative and just keep the fight alive. We need people to get behind us because, he's been treated unfairly. Like, if other people are home for the same thing that he did with the same case and the same paperwork. Like, he needs to be treated fairly. That's all. Not nothing different.
How has he been during this time mentally and spiritually, just going through this long ass journey?
I mean, that's probably part of the problem that he's so strong. You know what I mean? He hasn't broke down. You know what I mean? His mind is still strong. His spirit is still good. And if it's not, he presents himself in that way when he talks to his family or whoever he can talk to, or whenever he's visited. You wouldn't tell that he's bothered by a situation. So he's, you got to be strong. A lot of people go to that place and break down. That's what that place is made for.
Exactly.
To break you down and to drive you crazy. You hear about guys saying they've been in the hole, and after a week or two, they can't take it.
Yep.
He's been in the hole for 25, 26 years.
My God. How are we going to get this man out of there? What do we need to do, and what needs to be done to free Larry Hoover?
Man, I'm hoping. I don't know exactly. We working on a strategy. We had the lawyer and the teams to deal with that, but by getting the people together to get behind them, the same thing that I think they feared them about, we need to bring the people together and make a lot of noise and show that we want them to come home. You know what I mean? We got to scream loud. We need other people to scream loud. We need to get the people in the positions that can make a difference and help make that decision to scream loud. The politicians and the people that's supposed to be of importance. And I guess in the government they are of importance.
Yeah.
We need the people to say what we want, and then we need to get them to support the people, because that's their job to support the people. So we're just trying to we're just trying to put all that together.
Exactly.
But we definitely building the team. We have lawyers, but there's people coming on that's trying to take part in the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
now, Dave, with you having Breakbeat, what is it like for you being able to use your new platform for Larry Hoover Jr. and like-minded people that are trying to push the culture forward and move it in a different way, but this time with the audio?
Right. Well, first of all, it's an honor, to be able to be involved in telling his story for the first time, in a really, authentic, detailed way. And I'm, just honored that the family, entrusted me to be, the person to help bring that story out to the world through this podcast series that we're doing. It's a 10-part documentary series, so we've been working on it since earlier in the year, and we're going to announce it and put out a trailer on Larry Sr.'s birthday, which is November 30th coming up. So people get to hear the trailer for the series. But, this is one aspect of podcasting that's really, really, intriguing to me, because podcasting also has a whole kind of journalistic side to it. There are these investigative, narrative series. Podcasting isn't just, sitting here talking with somebody. That's one part of it that does well, but there's a whole nother world of podcasting that's huge. Drama,
acting, and everything else.
And it's totally void of content for the hip-hop community.
Facts.
So I'm heavily focused on that side of podcasting, being able to tell the Larry Hoover story, being able to tell the story of the Unsigned Hype column as an 8-part series. And we've got other things coming. There's so many amazing and important stories that need to be told, but just going back to the Larry Hoover story, to have them a part of the launch of Breakbeat, it means a great deal to me, and I think I think his story is so incredibly important. It's long overdue that it get told this way, but it needs to be told. The public perception of him needs to be changed based on people learning a lot more of the facts and not the narratives that have been pushed by law enforcement or media outlets that are, a lot of times the tools of the law enforcement and the government to put messages out. There's so many things and so many people who he's had such an amazing impact on, and his story is relevant to this day. His story begins in the 1950s and 60s, and it's still relevant in 2021, with everything that's going on in Chicago with the gun violence epidemic. you know, and you know, so many other, the criminal justice system. You know, this man is qualified legally to get out. You know, by law he should be released, but they, you know, are bending the laws and finding things, you know, for whatever their reasons are at this time. But you know, I think a lot of people recognize, like Larry was saying about his dad, like his dad. To me, was a revolutionary. He was somebody that was on a path to, you know, change the world and change, you know, the lives for, you know, inner city black communities through the approach that he had, you know, taken on. And I think he was on his way to do that. And you know, as we've seen with so many other of our leaders over the years, they're taken out one way or another. And you know, I feel he's a political prisoner. You know, his messaging around political involvement, you know, as one of the means to achieving the kind of change that we need out here, you know, was super powerful, and you know, has kind of been lost since he was, you know, put away federally with what they've done to him. So I think that messaging again is even more important today. You know, sitting here 25 years later and looking at the conditions and how things are, you know, things are as bad, if not worse than they were. And so yeah, that's a big part of the Breakbeat kind of formula, is to, you know, mix these different types of podcasts. You know, I do have some incredible visual podcasts. The Don't Call Me White Girl show is out now. You probably know about her.
I've seen it.
Yeah, she's a star. I mean, a lot of people know her from Why You Being Weird to Me. That's been, you know, that's her that created that whole thing. Probably one of the biggest viral moments of the year already. She was on, you know, $1 Million Worth of Game with Gillian Wallow as a co-host last year for like 3 months, and she killed it on there. She's, you know, she's incredibly funny, but she's also incredibly smart. You know, she brings that balance that I think, you know, we need in hip hop, and that's kind of the DNA of what The Source was and what I'm trying to do with Breakbeat. You know, she'll make you laugh, she'll entertain you, and she'll connect with you, you know, on that kind of street level, but she's also going to make you think. You're going to listen or watch her podcast and you might laugh, but you're also going to get to thinking about some real things that, you know, I think a lot of us need to talk about and think about. And so she's one. Then another one, I'm calling her and this other guy like the unsigned hypes of Breakbeat.
Okay.
So these are people that, you know, they already have something going on, but I think we can take them
where they're about
be
to
a
go.
part of taking them to a whole nother level. So Funny Marco, you know, we just shot the first episode of his podcast out here last week, and we're going to be doing more of that. It's called The Wrap It Up Show, starring Funny Marco. Now, probably everybody already follows Funny Marco. You know, we've all been, you know, laughing our asses off these past few years, you know, watching what he does out there, trying to figure out how he does it.
Yeah.
But I just felt like he has another level of, you know, just comedic talent and genius in what he's doing that we can take into the podcast space and start to bring him to another level with his career. So I'm really excited that he's one of the other launch shows for Breakbeat. And I can't leave out my show, the Dave Mays Show. So this will be the first time for me to actually, you know, have my voice really being heard out there. You know, I was a behind-the-scenes type of person when I was building and running The Source all those years. I didn't really want the credit. I didn't want to be out in the limelight and things like that. I just was about getting it done, what I was trying to do. And but, you know, it's a different world now. You know, people want to know the truth about a lot of the things that I was involved with. I think they can learn a lot when they hear my past story, but also, you know, my perspective on what's going on now and on hip hop, and, you know, the conversations I'm going to have with people, I think are going to be different than you'll hear with anyone else, you know, just because of my history and my connections with so many people that, you know, have been or continue to be a big part of the culture. So I'm excited to, you know, to finally, you know, bring that voice out there. And so the Dave Mays Show will launch, you know, next month as well. So hopefully folks will be checking that out.
Okay, Dave, let me get back in here. I got a question. You got the Unsigned Hype podcast, but what about the 5 Mic podcast? Because we got to go over that. And how did those 5 mics change the trajectory of those artists' careers by having that stamp behind them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, yeah, we're going to definitely tell the 5 Mic story. So there's more, coming behind this Unsigned Hype. That's just the surface, scratching the surface of what we're doing on that side. But the 5 Mics, of course, became the standard in the hip hop, music world for many years. I mean, artists would go in the studio and their whole purpose was to try to make a 5 Mic album. That was it. They would bring us down to the studio, have listening sessions, come up to the office, play us, music. That's how much credibility that the Source and those mics held. And again, it just kind of goes back to what I'm saying, just the passion, in which our staff and our people, dealt with, the music and the culture in such an authentic way. I mean, we helped a lot of people's careers through the 5 Mics. I mean, the Nas stands out for one because, obviously he's become, one of our greatest legends. But at the time, we gave Illmatic 5 Mics also before the album dropped. And, Nas had, he had a buzz from, he had been on, Live at the Barbecue, and then he had his other, like, Halftime or whatever that was out. But, when that 5 Mics came out in the Source right before Illmatic dropped, like, again, that was like a huge boost in the market of everybody, because if you got 5 Mics, that was, people were like, they're gonna buy that album. They're not gonna ask to listen to it or anything. Like, that's an automatic purchase for millions of people. So that's an example where it had a great impact on someone's career. I think some of the other 5 Mics. I mean, Ice Cube really got 5 on America's Most Wanted. That was when we first started the rating system back in 1990. So that we were a little smaller back then. Outkast, Aquemini. Now we gave 4.5, I think, to Southern Playalistic. So we loved that album. I loved them when they came out. We were on top of it, like we knew this was a defining new sound for the South. And it's debatable whether it should have probably been a 5 mics.
It deserved 5.
So we got it wrong sometimes. We were close, just not quite there. But we did come back with the Aquemini, make sure they got their 5 mics. So shout out to Andre and to Big Boy. Yeah.
When I think about Andre and Big Boy, it got to take me back to the Source Awards. Yeah. The South got something to say. Yeah. Talk to me about when y'all decided to produce the Source Awards. What were the thoughts about it? And then, did you think it was going to be crazy and then go down its history as one of those historical hip-hop moments that will live forever?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the inspiration for me to create the Source Awards really just started with, again, the kind of disrespect that hip-hop was getting through the mainstream media and institutions. And, like the Grammys started a rap category in the late 1980s, but it was terrible, like whatever they nominated was like nothing we were listening to, the most corny, whatever. It just wasn't recognizing hip hop.
It wasn't no 5 Mica.
Right, not even close. So, things like that where you just see the disrespect. People, people didn't take hip hop seriously. Oh, rapping, there's no skill involved in rapping. They didn't think of artists as poets and lyricists and all the things that they are. Same thing with producing. They used to say, oh, you guys just sample things. It's not hard to do. Like, there's no skill involved in that. So my thing was, creating a platform to celebrate the culture and to honor all this incredible talent and what people were contributing. And I just knew how many amazing people there were in the world of hip hop that weren't being recognized. So the very first Source Awards was a day on Yo MTV Raps. So I had gone to them with the idea and said, hey, can we give out some Source Awards? We did like the end of the year issue and look back at the year, and we created the awards that way. But then it became, let me turn it into a real awards show, So that first one was in '94. It was not televised. The famous one that everybody knows about, it was '95. That was our first televised show. I always believed the Source Awards, again, was going to be huge. I mean, it became like the Super Bowl for the hip hop world, the biggest event of the year that everybody looked forward to, and I really, really believe it. So I knew it was difficult bringing people together, but again, I always had those relationships where I was able to talk to everybody, even if they might not totally
like each
know
other
or get along. And there was a level of respect that was there. It was a very, very important, exciting thing, and I was always, very involved in every Source Awards up until the last one I did in 2004 down in Miami.
What went through your mind when Suge Knight got on that stage and said, if you don't want your producer and your PD just dancing and jumping in your videos, come to Death Row?
Okay, well, first of all, what I need to point out to folks about that night, going into that night, Tupac is in jail. Nobody knows that Suge has been talking to Pac and visiting Pac or whatever, and that in a month, 6 weeks later, he's going to get out and be part of Death Row. So going into putting that show together, there was no beef. There was Puffy and Biggie. They had beef with Pac from jail, who was, they were going back and forth while he was in jail. But Death Row wasn't connected to that, so, they were all cool. Everybody was cool. So, understand that going in. It wasn't like there was like some big tension that had already started. I haven't been able to have the conversation with Suge. I still plan to, hopefully, one of these days, of what really, was on his mind. I think there was some things that happened during the show, before he went up there, like when Bad Boy performed on that show. The very opening of their performance, Puff is kneeling on the stage, and he says something to the effect of like, I live in the East and I'll die in the East. And, I think, being in New York or whatever, it's a New York crowd, I'm sure that felt like the right thing to do. But, maybe, Suge and some of the people from the West might have took a little offense to that. I don't know. Maybe that was one of the reasons he decided to say what he said or whatever. But when it happened, I was walking around the theater somewhere because, I was all over the place during all the Source Awards, just trying to make sure everything was good backstage, in the crowd, outside, whatever needed to be done. So I can kind of remember being in the back, walking through the crowd, just kind of see what the vibe was like in the audience, and hearing, the uproar and the boos and everything. And I had to get backstage. I rushed to the backstage, and on the back of the theater there in the garden, it's like stairs going up and down. There's different levels going up and down. I can just remember when I came on this side of the stage, Suge was like 50 guys rushing up and down the stage, rah, rah, making all this, noise, talking loud and everything. And on the other side of the stage was where Puffy was at, and he had a bunch of people over there with him, and they were all like, upset and trying to figure out what to do. So I went over to them and, talked to Puff, and he decided, to his credit, to kind of take, the higher ground and not, respond in kind and try to calm things down, and I thank him, for doing that. And I think when Snoop came up a little bit later and said, all the things that he said, that really also took an edge off of the crowd and helped diffuse it a little bit. So it was a lot of tension, but there were no fights. Nobody got punched in the face. There was no other forms of violence around the Source Awards that night. And most importantly, one of the narratives that I've seen being pushed over the years is like people feel like that's the start of, the drama between Suge and Bad Boy and all that kind of stuff that leads, of course, to what we know happened. But, to me, that really starts a month later when Big Jake, who worked for Death Row, Suge's man, gets killed in Atlanta outside of the Jermaine Dupri party, and that was allegedly by one of Puffy's guys. So that's when the beef that might have been bubbling, or any disagreement, whatever might have been going on, that's when that really kind of became something much more serious. And of course, like I said before, Pac had gotten out, so now, Pac was with Death Row, and they were trying to, they were down with him and his situation. But it became violent after that happened, not at the Source Awards. Like I say, there was tension but it wasn't even, any scuffles or anything like that even took place. So I think that's important also to get the narrative right.
Exactly. What was it like covering Tupac when he was fresh out of jail and then having all of that content coming through the magazine?
I mean, when he got out of jail, and things started to, kind of heat up in the beef and everything going on, I always was really careful about how the magazine was used and what we printed in the magazine. You never want to be in a situation of printing something that's going to sensationalize or get somebody really upset, that type of thing. Nowadays it seems it's accepted and it's common. Everybody wants a headline or get somebody to click and they'll say or print whatever it is, push the line and not really care. But, I never looked at it that way running the Source. It was always, there's a responsibility again to the community and to the culture that came with my job of running the Source. So, when that stuff, I tried ways, like one thing I did as an example to try to help diffuse the situation was, many people will remember in that 96, we had Suge Knight on the cover, and he's sitting on the Rolls Royce in a red suit, one of our also most iconic Source covers everybody remembers. But if you go back and you look at that cover on the front page, it says Suge Knight, quotes underneath it, "It ain't no East Coast, West Coast thing." That was a quote from him in the article that I made sure we put on the front to let people know this isn't no East Coast, West Coast thing. It wasn't that. That was, other media outlets were kind of pushing that and the whole East West and promoting that, and that was, fanning the flames, so to speak. But, I always tried to find a way to help, as best as possible.
What was it like growing the Source from a newsletter to $1 million business, man? When you started to make money and profit off of this magazine, how did that make you feel? And did you think that it was going to get as big and as profitable as it was, and it turned out to be from a newsletter?
Yeah, like I said, my vision was growing all the time, and I kept thinking bigger and bigger and bigger. And I saw, a lot of what I did and what became with the Source, and but then there's a lot that I didn't get to, which is really what Breakbeat is about. And this return for me is to kind of pick up the torch, so to speak, of where I left off, because even though I left the Source 15 years ago, even though it's been that long, like I said, nobody really has filled the space in the way that the Source, was for hip hop. So, but yeah, it was. I always was excited again for the success of it to grow, but I always believed it would get bigger and bigger and bigger. I took a lot of pride in, ownership, because eventually I owned the Source 100%, and I had, never had any investors, never had any bank loans. Where I got into trouble was when the .com came out. I took out a big loan to invest into the internet and the Source.com, and that was really the biggest single mistake I made all those years. Was, I saw the future of digital and where it was going to go, but I was too early. And, I bet the farm on the digital, and I was it's too early. But
oh my God,
everything happens for a reason. So we're back here now, 15 years later. I got Breakbeat coming out to the world. That's just the beginning with the podcast network. We have many other things, a whole technology side to the business that we're going to be launching, coming up as well. And I think it's going to be bigger than the Source ever was.
Dave, talk to me about walking away from the Source. What was that like when you had to walk away from your baby?
It was tough. It was tough. It was very, very tough. It took me a long time to kind of recover from it, because it was my baby. I started it, this piece of paper, $200, and took it to, what it became, a company, worth close to $100 million, and owning it and everything, and then losing it in the end. So it was tough, but I always knew that I could come back and utilize the knowledge and experiences and the relationships. They could take the name from me, but they couldn't take all of that. And in a lot of ways, you know, that's why the Source isn't, you know, as what it was anymore. You know, just because, you know, they didn't have those things.
The driving force wasn't there. When you find yourself pushing 100 million with the Source, what was going through your mind at that time when you realized that this business model is working?
I mean, what going through my mind is I'm trying to get to $1 billion.
Oh!
You know what I mean?
I'm with you.
That's where my mind was at. You know, am I going to take this company public? Is it going to, you know, this, that, and the other? I mean, you know, yeah, I was enjoying life at a certain point. You know, I gained that kind of financial freedom that was wonderful. But, you know, it was always more than that to me. You know, it was more about where I was going and changing the world. And, you know, like I said earlier, I think the job hasn't been finished. You know, hip hop has changed the world, but we can do a lot more to change some of the most important things that we all know need to be changed in this world and this society around us that we're dealing with every day. So, you know, I believe that hip hop has the power to do that, and you know, with the right people and the right vehicles, you know, and the right voices and platforms and networking and connecting those dots and things like that it'll happen.
Okay, when you went from paper to digital, what are your thoughts on media going from the hand-to-hand combat with the newsstands, the gas stations, to now it is the .coms and the streaming?
Yeah. Well, one thing I've been thinking about, like with the podcast network, I think a podcast network is really the answer of what a digital magazine should be. You know, we've heard that term, digital magazine, for 20 years now. It's never happened. There's no digital magazine that's ever, you know, lasted, or we read, oh, I got to read this digital.
That's right.
But a podcast network is like, you know, taking the pages and the sections of a magazine that you would normally get, but bringing them to life, you know, in a digital form through different podcasts now. So we'll have a podcast that is sports related. We'll have a podcast that's fashion related. We'll have a podcast that's health related. We'll have a podcast, you know, on all these different types of sections or subject matters. So that's one thing that's kind of cool about it is, you know, I feel like I'm kind of doing the same thing, but just, you know, finding a way to do it differently in the world and the technology, you know, world that we're in. And like I said earlier, I just think it's exciting because it's different, but the upside is even bigger, and the opportunity is there because of that level playing field I was talking about. You know, somebody can come up with an idea tonight in their garage, in their basement. And, you know, if it's the right idea, you know, it's possible that you could be, you know, the next Facebook, you know, 2 years down the road or what have you. It is possible right now. It's still wide open. So, you know, that's a great feeling. And I'm excited about it, and, you know, just blessed, you know, to have the opportunity to come back into the community and into the industry and into the media space at this time, and try to make something big and make a difference.
Exactly. Larry, Breakbeat, doing your thing, trying to free Dad. What is that like for you, creating this content around your struggle and your mission?
Man, it's just you know how you don't know where you might be one place one day and one place the next.
Yeah.
You know, I never knew. You know, it's just something that I didn't expect, but it's it's just a good thing. It's just basically something that was needed. It's like, wow, I needed this. I know I needed to do it some type of way, and it just popped out right there in front of me. There it is. So it's just like I said, everything is about me having a platform to push for my father. He's been everybody else used their platforms, and they used them wrong. You know, they made him into an imaginary figure, just a Al Capone or something to that aspect. But, you know, he's more than that. He's a human being.
What is it like trying to change that image of your father in these days and times, man? Because, I mean, you know, you get put into that box and it's hard to get up out of there. So what has that been like, trying to clean that whole thing up?
I mean, everybody has been pretty receptive. What about trying?
Receptive. I'm with you.
They've been receptive to, you know, what I'm giving them, but it's crazy that some people rather listen to a lie than listen to the truth. And you know,
I feel you.
I'm the one that
Damn.
I'm the one that talks to my father. You know what I mean? I know where his mind is at and what he's about and what he believes in. The fact that he's horrified by the stories he hears about what's going on in the streets nowadays, and you know, that's not him. That's not what he's about. He can't understand how it can't be stopped. And you know, people still want to believe we gang banging or something out here in the world.
Yeah.
You know, but like I say, it's just great to be looking for a way to put it out there, to actually having a way.
What was it like growing up the son of Larry Hoover in Chicago?
It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a good thing because to a certain extent you protected, and you know you looked at as you're a ghetto celebrity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, always as a kid coming up, I had to wonder, is somebody go try to get me?
Damn.
And as an adult, I had to feel like the feds always watching me.
Mm.
And, you know, I haven't been involved in illegal things, but just to have that feeling that because of my name, I'm being, you know, messed with and watched and what have you, and I can't do what everybody does, even if it's something that they put in my head. You know what I mean? It's just, that's part of coming up being Larry Hoover's son.
Dealing with those realities, man, and just thinking about the federales could possibly be on your ass for no damn reason. How do you live with that?
It's just a part of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I just live with it. I know I don't have anything to worry about. You know, people like, you got to be careful who you deal with and this and that, and it's kind of like, I got to be careful, but I don't know what I'm being careful for because I'm not doing anything. I've been a part of society.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? I got my wife and my daughter out there.
Facts.
You know, my son. I've been working for 20 plus years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Paying taxes and what have you. So, you know, it's crazy to have to feel like that and think about it, knowing that you've been a part of society, the same thing that my father was trying to tell people to do because he spent enough time in jail for everybody.
Shit.
You know what I mean? Definitely my family and for other families. And, you know, just also was trying to tell people that people go to jail with one outlook and talk to him and come home trying to figure out how they can get their life together.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That's just the person he is. It's crazy to think that I had to be worried about the feds for somebody like that when they didn't want to accept that that's who he is.
What do you think it's going to take, once again, I got to ask this question, to get Larry Hoover out of prison?
It's gonna take the world to get behind him.
Yeah.
You know, like Dave says, the podcast is the hip hop community, and that community is part of the world, and it reaches to a multitude of people, and it's gonna take a multitude of people to support the movement. You know what I mean? It's gonna take judges and lawyers and, like I say, politicians. A president could, you know, do it right away, but it's gonna take ideas, you know, ridiculous think tank to, you know, come up with what it's gonna take. It's gonna take the people with the experience to help bring other people home. It's gonna take a melting pot of things to get them home.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take to not fight. You know, they want us to be quiet, not mention Larry Hoover. You know, I walk on eggshells. I want to do something in the name of my father, but at the same time, I wonder, will it hurt him? You know, when I'm advocating for him, like, will somebody be upset that I'm steady speaking on Larry Hoover and what he did and that he needs to come home, that he needs to be free?
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be nothing wrong with that. That's nothing negative. When I talk about the good that he's done in the community, like, I got to feel like, can I hurt his chance of coming home with the things that I'm saying, or just, you know, it's crazy.
I feel that. Lastly, fellas, Breakbeat. What do we need to be expecting? Folks want to get down with the movement. How can they get in here, Larry?
Okay, I don't want to cut you off.
Now, say what you feel.
But before you get to the end of the Breakbeat thing, you know, well, speaking of the fear, you know, they want my father to disappear, but he can't disappear. He is who he is. He helped a lot of people. The things that he have done and who he is here. Yeah. And with that, I just want to say that, you know, on November 30th, we having Larry Hoover Day here in Atlanta.
That's right.
In Fulton, and we gonna do some things on that day, and man, hopefully I can help you. I mean, you can help me spread the message of what we gonna do. We still working on getting all the plans together. Yeah. But yeah, I just want to let.
I'm here for it.
It's Larry Hoover Day coming, and we're gonna celebrate for him as a leader in the community, and not as a leader of the Gangster Disciples, but a leader in our community, and to get together and support him and the type of things that he would, you know, that he's about.
Exactly. Now I'm with you. Hit me with the math, Dave. Breakbeat. How can folks get down with the movement? What do we need to be finding this stuff? Folks want to turn in shows and all this extra stuff and everything else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Breakbeat, if you want to just tune in and listen to our shows, we're on all the podcast apps. So if you listen to podcasts on Apple, Spotify, you know, anywhere like that. We're also, our visual material is on the Breakbeat Media YouTube channel. So if you just search that up on YouTube, it'll pop up, Breakbeat Media. And you can go to our website, breakbeatmedia.com, which kind of give you a snapshot of all the different things that we have going on and coming up. There's a way to contact us through there. Of course, you can come to our social media, you know, at Breakbeat Media on IG, at Breakbeat Media on Twitter. And you can contact us through those platforms. Definitely looking for new podcast content. You know, going to continue to add shows and grow the network out. I'm looking for talent and people doing different and interesting things. So please, you know, reach out. You can follow me at The Real Dave Mays on IG. You can contact me through there or email. There's, I think, an email link on both pages, you know, to email us.
I can dig it. Dave, appreciate you coming through this thing. Larry, appreciate you coming through this thing. Wish y'all number the best and much success. Beehive Radio, shout it. Larry Hoover Jr., Dave Mays. We gone. Holler at y'all in a minute, man.